South Carolina's first firing squad, execution, a critical exploration. Capital punishment has long been a contentious topic in the United States, splitting public opinion along ethical, moral, and practical lines. Now, South Carolina stands at the center of this debate as it prepares for its first execution by firing squad. A practice steeped in historical and legal complexity, the use of a firing squad sparks renewed scrutiny on the death penalty and its implementation in the modern justice system. In this video, we critically explore the layers of history, legality, ethics, and societal impact surrounding this decision, urging viewers to contemplate the future of criminal justice in America. South Carolina's decision to allow executions by firing squad is not an isolated event, but rather the culmination of years of logistical and legal challenges. In recent years, an ongoing shortage of the drugs used for lethal injections has forced states across the U.S. to consider alternative execution methods. For South Carolina, this resulted in the adoption of the firing squad as one of 3 legal means of execution, alongside the electric chair and lethal injection. But this shift wasn't made without preparation. Renovations to South Carolina's death chamber were completed 3 years ago to accommodate firing squads, and a team of trained sharpshooters has since been assembled. The motivations behind this decision may appear straightforward at first. The state's inability to procure the drugs necessary for lethal injections. Yet this logistical hurdle raises deeper questions about the state of the death penalty in America today, and whether these alternatives solve or simply sidestep the larger issues at hand. To understand the significance of South Carolina's decision, it's essential to look back at the history of firing squad executions. Globally, firing squads have been used for hundreds of years, primarily in military contexts. In the United States, however, they have always been a rare form of capital punishment. Since 1976, when the U.S. Supreme Court reinstated the death penalty, only 3 firing squad executions have been carried out nationwide. The method has been largely overshadowed by lethal injection, which was long considered the most humane option due to its perceived sterility and efficiency. Yet as lethal injection faces mounting criticism, both for botched executions and the ethical dilemmas of drug procurement, firing squads now re-enter the conversation, igniting debates about their place in modern justice. The logistics and mechanics of a firing squad execution are relatively simple, but they carry immense symbolic and emotional weight. The condemned individual is restrained in a chair or against a wall, with a target placed over their heart. A team of sharpshooters, typically 5, is positioned a short distance away, armed with rifles. Crucially, one of the rifles is loaded with a blank round, allowing the shooters to maintain a degree of plausible deniability about who fired the fatal shot. Proponents argue that the firing squad is one of the quickest and least painful execution methods available, avoiding the prolonged suffering sometimes associated with botched lethal injections. However, critics see it as a brutal, archaic practice that undermines societal progress. The visceral nature of the firing squad, a deliberate act of violence rather than a clinical injection, is precisely why it provokes such intense feelings on both sides of the debate. Legal battles have shaped the death penalty in the United States since its inception. In 1976, the Supreme Court's decision in Gregg v. Georgia reinstated capital punishment under revised regulations, marking the beginning of the modern death penalty era. This ruling came with stipulations designed to reduce arbitrary or discriminatory sentencing, but it left the choice of execution methods largely to individual states. In South Carolina, the firing squad became a legal option after years of challenges in securing lethal injection drugs. The state's efforts to implement alternatives were solidified in 2021, when legislation was passed to include firing squads as a backup method. While technically legal, this decision continues to challenge the boundaries of what American society considers acceptable in its pursuit of justice. Few topics in criminal justice spark as much ethical debate as the death penalty. Proponents view it as a rightful form of retribution for the most heinous crimes, arguing that it provides closure for victims' families and serves as a deterrent to future criminal acts. From this perspective, the method, whether firing squad or lethal injection, is secondary to the principle of ensuring justice is served. However, critics counter these arguments with concerns about fallibility and morality. The risk of wrongful executions is an inescapable reality. Even with modern advancements, innocent people have been sentenced to death. Moreover, opponents question whether a system plagued by racial bias, socioeconomic inequities, and inconsistent application can ethically administer such an irreversible punishment. The firing squad, in particular, evokes a visceral emotional response because of its overt violence. While it may be touted as quick and humane, it forces society to confront the stark brutality of taking a life. As South Carolina turns to the firing squad, it is essential to examine how it compares to other execution methods. Lethal injection, though dominant since the 1980s, has seen its reputation tainted by a series of botched executions. Mismanaged drug dosages and untested chemicals have led to cases of prolonged suffering, prompting ongoing litigation and public outrage. The electric chair, another alternative, is similarly fraught with controversy. Its history is riddled with stories of malfunctioning equipment, horrific burns, and debates over whether it constitutes cruel and unusual punishment. Against this backdrop, some argue that the firing squad, while unsettling to watch or imagine, is a more reliable and less agonizing option. This claim, however, does little to address broader questions about whether any form of state-sanctioned killing is justifiable in a modern society. The decision to reinstate the firing squad has sparked a wide range of reactions, both within South Carolina and across the nation. Advocates for the method emphasize its speed and reliability compared to lethal injection, framing it as a necessary response to practical challenges. On the other hand, opponents see it as a glaring step backward, a revival of a method they believe belongs in history books, not in contemporary courtrooms. Victims' families are often caught in the middle of these debates, with some advocating for swift justice, while others reject the concept of vengeance altogether. Political leaders are just as divided, with some using the issue to rally support for tough-on-crime policies, and others calling for a re-evaluation of capital punishment as a whole. The rise of true crime storytelling has played a significant role in shaping public discourse on the death penalty. Documentaries, podcasts, and long-form journalism often delve into the stories of those on death row, humanizing the condemned in ways that complicate the traditional narrative of justice. These stories, combined with high-profile cases of wrongful convictions, have helped shift public opinion toward a more critical view of the death penalty. South Carolina's firing squad execution is likely to become a flashpoint in the cultural conversation, raising questions about how society consumes stories of crime, punishment, and justice. Is the fascination with true crime helping to foster a more thoughtful debate, or is it merely sensationalizing complex issues? The reintroduction of the firing squad in South Carolina offers a stark reminder that the death penalty, while waning in popularity, remains a polarizing issue in the United States. This decision comes at a time when many states are moving away from capital punishment altogether, either abolishing it or pausing executions indefinitely. For advocates of criminal justice reform, this moment underscores the urgent need for systemic changes. Alternatives to the death penalty, such as life imprisonment without parole, offer paths to justice that avoid the risks and ethical dilemmas of executions. Restorative justice programs, which focus on reconciliation and rehabilitation, represent an even more transformative approach. Ultimately, the decision to revive the firing squad invites us to question not only the methods we use, but the values we uphold as a society. Does capital punishment truly serve justice, or is it a relic of a punitive mindset in need of reform? South Carolina's return to the firing squad is more than a logistical workaround or historical curiosity. It is a profound moment demanding deep societal reflection. By revisiting this rarely used execution method, the state challenges all of us to confront our beliefs about justice, punishment, and morality. As debates continue and the first execution looms, we urge viewers to engage thoughtfully with these issues. The death penalty is not just a question of law or politics, but one of humanity. It asks us to consider not only what justice demands, but also what kind of society we want to create. This is a turning point, not just for South Carolina, but for the nation. Whether this moment leads to meaningful reform or a doubling down on outdated practices will depend on our willingness to question, debate, and ultimately act. The conversation is far from over,